Holy guacamole. Welcome back to Breaking Down the Breakdown. It had been 2 weeks since the last episode. I completely forgot to upload yesterday. I'm so sorry, but you know what? I have been bound by the rules of the podcasting game in which you actually had to upload things every Tuesday at 5 a.m. And you know what? It ain't working for me. I think I'm just going to upload when I fucking feel like it. I'm kidding. I'm still going to try to do it on a weekly basis, guys. But welcome to, I was about to say, So You Think You Can Dance. I don't know why. I think every time I hear welcome, I think of Kat Deely. Jesus, does she still even host that show? I don't even know where she's been or where she is now. But this is Breaking Down the Breakdown with me, Steven Diego. How is everybody doing today? I was thinking long and hard about what I'm going to talk about today. I'm kidding. It took me about 6 minutes to realize what I wanted to talk about today. And I don't think it's actually something I've directly addressed in this show, which I'm surprised about because this is 7 seasons in and I still have things to talk about. I am pretty surprised. As you know, I do talk about topics quite a lot. I mean, the same topics, but I try to do it with different people to give different perspectives. But really, I don't know. Maybe if someone can correct me and go back to my catalog, that's just me telling you guys to rewatch everything. But honestly, I don't think I've ever talked about what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck. And a lot of people might, they might think, oh, well, I mean, there's not much to say. You're living paycheck to paycheck. True. Yeah, I guess we can end the episode here. Thank you. 2-minute episode brought to you by Breaking Down the Breakdown. But in all honesty, for those of us who are living paycheck to paycheck, and for those of you who are not, don't we ever wonder, how the fuck did we get here? How did we find ourselves in a situation where we are living paycheck to paycheck? And I mean, there are tons of factors. I grew up in Canada, but I came here when I was 12. My mom had been living paycheck to paycheck, ever since we came here. I mean, not anymore. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what she's doing now, to be honest. Like, she's back here. She's back in the Philippines. She's like, doing her thing. But I remember growing up and I remember how hard we had it, and she had like 2-3 jobs. I started having to sell vacuum cleaners when I was 13. It was crazy. It was crazy times, just so I can help my mom, keep things afloat. But I think the most interesting thing for me and why I wanted to talk about this is I kind of have no one else to blame but myself for my predicament in life, if I'm being honest. And this isn't me pointing the finger at y'all who are also living paycheck to paycheck, right? Sorry, retainers are on. Y'all already know that time of the night. But I think a little bit of accountability from all parts, right? From all parties. I mean, it kind of works too. From all parties, it's important to have in order to figure out why. And I will say this, around maybe, 85% of us will realize, shit, we can take accountability as much as we want. But for fuck's sake, we were put in this situation way before we even knew we were in this situation. And it's such a hard place to get out of. See, this isn't an episode where you shame people for living paycheck to paycheck. I wanted this episode to kind of highlight what it's like for someone to do so. A lot of people, at first I wanted this episode to be like, help, I'm poor. But it's really unfair to say that. Because there are people like us who live paycheck to paycheck. And there are people who, would need help from food banks. There are people who, and there's no shame in that. I think that's the number one thing I'm trying to talk about here. But obviously, for that episode, I kind of want to talk to somebody who actually has been through that situation, because I do not want to speak out of turn. That is just not me at all. So I will only talk about my experiences with this. But sorry, y'all know this. I get derailed all the time. But getting back into the topic, it's kind of wild, right? A lot of people might sit there and listen to this or watch this and say, how rich of this whole thing to come from someone who lives in Canada, who can afford internet, who can afford roof over their heads, who can afford computer to stream and play games and do singing stuff, who can afford, going to a recording studio, who can afford this and that and this and that and this and that. Well, let me tell y'all something right now. Just because I can afford something doesn't mean I'm not living paycheck to paycheck. That's what people are kind of forgetting about this whole situation. I am living paycheck to paycheck in order for me to even live. It's so funny because it's such a simple concept to try and grasp. But a lot of people will come out of the woodwork and say, yeah, but what? Do I need to show you my pay stub and show you my receipts to show you that everything I am earning, every paycheck is going to, somewhere in my life where I'm left with no savings? Let that sink in. And a lot of people will say, well, why don't you get another job? Which is so valid. It truly is. It's a valid, it's a valid solution. You don't want to live paycheck to paycheck, go get another job. But what about those of us who have a hard time finding another job? What about those of us who can't get another job for reasons unknown? A prime example for me, right? It's hard for me to keep down more than one job because of my OCD. Now, I'm not saying I can't do it, but I don't think you guys actually understand how stress plays into mental health sometimes. And a lot of people say, well, you're just going to have to suck it up, or else don't complain about living paycheck to paycheck. No, this is not about me complaining about living paycheck to paycheck. This is me trying to let you guys know there are people out there who are living paycheck to paycheck. Honestly, this could be like a fucking drinking game. The amount of times I'm going to say paycheck to paycheck in this episode, take a fucking shot, everybody. But for real, now you see I'm mad now because I said for real. And I love how I get myself riled up in these situations. But I see that there's a lack of compassion in almost anything nowadays. And for some cases, I understand-ish. Not really. But I'll say, you know what? Just give it space and time. But for certain situations that's been around since the dawn of time, we're really shitty people. We already see that a person is going through financial hardships. And instead of being supportive, here we are telling them what you think is the best thing for them to do. Which, hey, by all means, if they are asking you for help and opinion about it, shit, that's fair. But for far too long, I've been seeing and hearing a lot of unsolicited comments about my situation with my own financial situation, right? A lot of people still can't grasp how OCD affects my everyday life. And while it is so much better now because I, pretty much have a handle on it on certain days, I was reminded of how terribly challenging it could be once I'm pushed over the edge in terms of being overworked. Not even overworked. It's silly because, people are going to be like, oh my God, people work 9 to 5 every day. and you can't handle a 9 to 5 for 3-4 weeks? The answer, unfortunately, is no. And I'm not going to be ashamed to say that. A lot of people are ashamed into hiding how they truly feel about these things because they don't want to be looked at as lazy or complacent. It's also unfair for a lot of these people because they don't realize they are going through some form of mental hardship at the moment, if not an actual mental health disorder. And it's so much easier to just chalk it up to laziness and lack of passion for anything, lack of ambition, I'd say. Because it's so much easier than having to explain the kind of mental anguish that you go through. Now, let me tell you something. For the past month, right, I've been working either 40-hour weeks or close to it because I've been training people. And I am so grateful because I need the money, right? I think for the first time in years, I wasn't living paycheck to paycheck and I was able to save, $100 each paycheck, which is more than I could have ever dreamt of. Kind of sad if you think about it. But unfortunately, this is the life I have now. 3 weeks into it, I started feeling, I don't want to say like I wasn't myself. I definitely am always me. But I had forgotten the reason why it was challenging for me to work more than 20 hours a week. Was it because I'm lazy? Unfortunately not. Let me tell you what I do after work. After work, I get home. I do normal people chores. I try to, socialize. I try to post on social media because I do have another job as a content creator online. Or a lot of people won't see that as a job, but if I'm making money off of it or trying to make money off of it and trying to be consistent with purging out content, with interacting with your audience on top of having to work, I guess IRL, right? I mean, it amounts to working a 9 to 5 every day. Unfortunately, the line of work I chose is not always making money. But it's still a job, and I still do like it, and I still do want to do it. So already, this is the kind of life that I'm used to. So adding more hours into the day would kind of be the equivalent of getting a second job then. And I realized just how much that took out of me. Maybe because I wasn't used to anymore. Sure, we can chalk it up to that. But it hit so different mentally. I all of a sudden did not have time for anyone. Not even for myself. I couldn't have time for the gym. It was rough. And a lot of y'all are sitting there saying you just need better time management. And I will say yes. Oh, definitely I do. But say that to me when I'm in the middle of a mental breakdown in my room crying over things that I don't know about. If you're sitting there and listening to this right now and rolling your eyes and you're telling me you're just fucking lazy, you just don't want to fucking work, I'm not going to sit here and tell you you're wrong. But I'm going to sit here and explain and elaborate to you why for people like me, why we never change our cycle or our patterns. And that is one of the things that feed into it. We already have an idea of how people feel about us. And for overthinkers out there, for people with ADHD or other mental health disorders, one of the voices, one of the more annoying, particular, and prevalent voices that we hear all the time in our heads are those of others who are super critical of who we are. It's so unfortunate because that should be blocked out as white noise because they're not living our lives. They're over there, cozy. They're over there working hard and having all the success that they deserve. I'm not here to talk shit about you people, by the way. Because what I'm trying to tell y'all is I wish I had the same kind of strength you guys do. I wish I had the same kind of, what do you call that? Not persistence, because I'm pretty fucking damn persistent, right? But I wish I had the same kind of motivation that you guys have. And this is how I view it. And even in that sentence alone, other people out there can relate to how I feel. And this is not a good thing. Because in doing so, we are destroying our own value. And because we are so insecure about who we are and what we do and what our capabilities are or lack thereof, we just wave the white flag and say, well, shit, this is it for me. I just got to make sure I have enough money for rent. Got to make sure I have enough money for food to pay the bills, and let's call it a night. And we sit here, or we lie down, can't sleep at night because we can't help but think, but what if one day we just get up and do something about it? Maybe next week. And you know what kills me? What kills me is that we know that we can. Yet we fucking don't. We always have excuses. But for 36 years of my life, for 36 fucking years of my life that I've been on this earth, I will say this. I held down 3 jobs before. I was making more money than I was making now. And I still have nothing to show for it. Life, when you start off at a disadvantage, will always be expensive. It's hard to find an equalizer. I can blame a lot of things to a shit ton of events that happened to me that prevented me from not being in this situation. But I'm choosing to hold myself accountable because I do recognize these patterns now. And this is for all of you who are in the same boat. I'm not saying you're no good. I'm saying we can just be better. And it's hard. I get it. It's a lot of risks to take that for the regular person is actually not a risk. For the regular person, that's life. You just gotta fucking do it. And there are certain situations in my life that I'm like that about. But when it comes to making money, ask yourselves, how long have you been with the company you're working for? I'm the kind of person that I only leave a company if I'm getting pushed out. Right? I worked at a clothing retail store for 5 years. Prior to that, I worked at an office supply store until they had to close down. And right now at my job, I've been there for 9 years. I'm always afraid of change and doing something new because I'm always afraid that I'm going to fail. And if I fail, what does that say about me? See, how we do things in other aspects of our life does bleed into the financial aspect of it. Of course it does. But for some reason, there's a wall there that we've put up so that we can't see just how they interact. And if we're able to just even break down a little bit of that wall, make a makeshift window, maybe we'll be able to actually see the things that we need to see in order to break ourselves out of this cycle. Because living paycheck to paycheck is not fucking fun. You want to go on trips. You want to go do things with your friends. If you have a family, you want to afford the best things for your children. That's what breaks my heart. Families living paycheck to paycheck. Because I grew up in a household like that. And my mom did exceptionally well for herself afterwards. But I chose to break away. Right? If y'all have listened to a few episodes, you'll know why, right? So again, I put myself in that situation. But my mental health thanks me for it. I mean, obviously now I did some questionable things in 2020 that really, brought me back to the stone ages mentally. And I'm paying for that price now. But again, if there is one common denominator here, I'm not going to say, yeah, because all of these outside factors are, no. It's me. And I implore you to do the same. Not because I want you to feel shitty that this was actually your choice. You're the reason you're here. It's not that. I think owning up to it and saying, I am the reason why I'm living paycheck to paycheck. How many shots is that? Like 14 shots? Being able to say that is like taking the power back. Yeah, you're going to feel hella shitty for the first hour or week, depending on how your mind interacts, right? But the one thing that I think you forgot all this time is, if you're the one who put yourself in there, you're the one who can get yourself out of there. And even if you're not the one who put yourself in there, but you're the one who chose to remain there, you can get yourself out of there. Is it going to be hard? Oh my God, yes. But it's not impossible. And I think there's a lot of disconnect as well in terms of when people think getting out of paycheck to paycheck situation means being rich. No. It just means being able to finally live comfortably. I think a lot of us who have been pegged down a few notches, who have been knocked down a few times, who are pretty much, feeling like we are beneath some people, we feel like it's impossible, or it seems impossible to get to that level because we're looking at it from the first floor and we're looking at the rooftop of a 100-story building. It's like we ignore that there are levels before we even get to the top. And any level other than where we're at in this very moment is so much better. But we can't. We're like, we're tunneling. It's a tunnel vision situation, right? I was going to say a League of Legends fucking game reference, but, I feel like a lot of you don't really play League because you're not toxic, right? You're not like me. But you're like a racehorse, I guess, with those blinders. It's kind of like, I just got to go straight. Life is not like that. Even with mental health, right? Like, they will teach you that recovery is not a straight line. Sometimes you can even have a lower point than when you started, near the end of your journey. That's just how it is. That's just life, right? And unfortunately, a lot of people who are pretty much the same as me are the ones that are experiencing this. I guess the whole point of this episode is to just get it out into the world that I'm living paycheck to paycheck and life kind of sucks sometimes. And it's not okay right now. And it might be okay tomorrow. No, it won't. It might be okay in a month or two. Maybe next year. But I'm here. And so are you. And you're probably listening to this like, what the fuck, Steven? I thought you were going to give me a solution. There are no fucking solutions in this show. This is called breaking down the breakdown, not fixing the breakdown. We're breaking it down. I have broken down what might have been the cause of our situation. And it might have been us. But that right there is the good news. How many times have we gotten back up from situations that had pegged us down? And this is nothing different from that. It was a really tough subject to talk about. Because, funny enough, out of everything that I've talked about on this show, this has been one of my most vulnerable ones because it's hard for me to talk about this. It's hard to admit that you're not financially well off, especially when you're in your 30s. There's a lot of shame that you are putting into it. I've noticed on social media lately that people don't actually really give a fuck about other people's wealth. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Because you would think that maybe some people will finally stop caring about putting on a show about, who they are. But the most heartbreaking thing is, unfortunately, these critics actually live in our heads now. And yes, there are still some haters out there. That will never change. But my point is, we can't even face what's outside if we can't even tolerate the voices coming from the inside. So let's do it. Let's just own up to it. Let's just say, fuck yeah, I'm broke. And I will be broke tomorrow, and the week after tomorrow, and 2 weeks after tomorrow. And it doesn't feel good. But now that I've finally taken into account that I might be the problem, or that I might not be helping myself in this situation, I can finally start learning to break the cycle that I've put myself in. It's not easy. And I'm saying this because I'm in the same boat and I'm trying to do it. And you know what? Maybe I made this episode to fucking tell myself that I can do it. It's self-serving. I shrugged. For those of you who are just listening, I fucking shrugged. Yeah, okay, it's self-serving. But I know I'm not alone in this. And this is what I love about this podcast. I don't love that everybody else is suffering. It's not that. Is that I know someone somewhere out there is listening to this and going, holy shit, dude. I know I'm not lazy, but I know what you mean with me trying to make my life better, but I just can't seem to do it. Well, yeah, you're not alone, dude. Or is it do that? I don't fucking know. You're not alone, person. Anyways, that's all the time I have for this episode. I will see y'all very, very soon because I do owe you guys 2 episodes. So you know what? Fuck the rules. We're going to break the rules this season. We're going to break the rules a lot this season. Maybe next time I'll talk about sex work. Not maybe. One of the next times. Not the next episode. I really want it to be like a big episode. But it has something to do with this. And people's dignities. And, I'm not going to go on a tangent now that at the end of the episode. But I saw some very heartbreaking things about people's opinions on sex workers, and I kind of want to address that. Didn't know we were playing God, but anyway, this has been Breaking Down the Breakdown. My God, I know everybody's listening to this is like, oh shit, but at the end of each episode, I do try to tell y'all to be compassionate, right? And be kind to others. Because you don't know what they're going through. Yet somehow, somewhere, someone manages to justify why they have to crucify others for decisions they've made, not fully knowing why they made such decisions. If you're one of those people, I'm going to hug you when I see you. And I will say I'm sorry that it's hard for you to understand, but I'm grateful that you don't ever have to have the privilege of understanding what it feels like to do things against your nature just to survive. This has been Breaking Down the Breakdown. I will see y'all later. Goodbye.